Hey guys, welcome to the channel. So about a year ago I bought a 2002 Yamaha Raptor 660 for just 2800 euros. Looking back now, I didn't have any idea what I was getting myself into at the time. But in this video, I'll show you why.
At first glance, the Raptor actually looked pretty decent apart from being dirty. It came with a widened rear axle, aftermarket nerve bars, aluminum skid plates and an FMF silencer. The plastics were in okay condition, the frame looked solid, even the chain and sprockets looked okay, so it overall looked like a pretty good buy. At that point I thought it would only needed a few minor repairs so I could start enjoying it. But unfortunately that turned out to not be the case. Upon further inspection and disassembly, I came across some major issues, as you will see in this video.
After owning it for a few days, I was finding out there were a lot of big issues with this quad.
So one of the first things I noticed when disassembling the Raptor were the rims. 3 out of the 4 rims were bent like crazy. After that I checked the brakes. The brake pads were beyond worn out, as you can see. There was no brake pad material left. They were so worn out that even the steel part of the brake pads were damaged. When looking at the brake discs, they also show a lot of wear. This was the case for not only the front brakes but the rear brake as well. When buying this quad, I noticed this engine had a ticking noise. I decided to buy the quad anyways, and after tearing the engine apart, I noticed the amount of wear on all 4 sides of the piston. This usually indicates piston slap, hence the ticking sound I heard when I bought this Raptor. But that was not the only damage on this piston. On one corner a part of the piston skirt was broken off. This may be because of a result of the piston slap this thing had. Another thing to note was the wrist pin being seized. You can also tell by the markings in the wrist pin hole on the piston. Even though the piston was so heavily damaged, it actually drove pretty well. The crankshaft had a lot of axial play. After removing the crankshaft from the engine, you can see this bearing has axial movement on the shaft. When rotating the bearing, you can see the bearing's inner ring spinning as well. In my experience, this usually indicates that the crankshaft itself is worn out. Ouch. So I bought a new to me crank. Happy Me was excited to open up my package to find out I got a full circle crank. Since the new crank was a full circle crank and the old one wasn't, I decided to do measurements to compare the new one to the old one. This is when I found out that the flywheel side has more of a taper than the original one. But before looking into that, I decided to make sure this crank was straight. And I checked the runout on the runout table. Unfortunately, the crankshaft was out of true. It had 2.5 tenths of a millimeter of runout. Usually, depending on the engine, you want the crankshaft to be 0.03 millimeters or 300ths of a millimeter out of true at max. So this resulted in not being able to use this crankshaft at all. But since I like to overthink things once in a while, I did all of this work to then find out this crankshaft was not for my engine, but for the Yamaha XT660. This is the EFI version of this engine. They look quite similar, but are different. And if I just checked this code on the connecting rod, I would have known this before doing all of this work. The 3YFB is used in the Yamaha XT660 engine, and the Raptor uses the 3YFN.
So one of the major issues this Yamaha Raptor 660 has are the shift forks. So these shift forks wear out in a lot of the early models. And as you can see, this shift fork is completely perished.
Okay guys, so here you'll see the damaged shift fork. This wear prevents going into second gear, and that shows by as if it is clicking into neutral.
If it's damaged like this, it can't lift up the gear enough to make the second gear ratio.
First off, I painted the frame in a Nardo Grey color. The color scheme for this street quad is going to be Nardo Grey with gloss black and anodized blue accents. In this picture you can see the engine test fitted in the frame to see how the black engine will go with the Nardo Grey frame. One thing to note is that the engine gets repainted black, since the paint I use is poor quality. The swing arm is painted black, as you can see in this picture. The bearings and seals are also replaced, as well as the bushings. Since now our swing arm is redone, I decided to go with a brand new billet bearing carrier. This came with new bearings and seals already pre-installed. Next up, we've got a brand new radiator. Since this one is a little bit different than the original one, I needed to make a new mount for the fan. Since this Raptor had a lot of electrical malfunctions, I rewired the entire wiring harness and labeled everything accordingly. This should make troubleshooting easier in the future. As for the steering stem, I've repainted this and I replaced the bearings and the bushings. The old bearings were completely shot, so there was a lot of back and forward play. And since we're trying to make this Raptor 660 look really nice, I've got a new cooled expansion reservoir, since it was very cheap and looks way cleaner than the old one. But I did decide to use the old handlebars. This one is a rental and I think it is quite nice. I did get a new clutch lever though. And in this clip you'll see the wiring harness installed, as well as some coolant lines, the radiator and some other small stuff. And since I did not like the old and outdated headlights, I bought some Raptor 700 headlights from AliExpress. They actually came with daytime running lights, sequential turning signals and of course LED headlights. We'll see how these hold up, but my first impression is that they actually look and feel good. They also came with their own wiring harness. But mounting these is not straightforward, since the mounts are not the same, except for the top one. This means I need to fabricate some custom brackets and I think it is well worth it. It gives this Raptor 660 an updated look. In this picture, you'll see these reinforced rims I've got. I actually traded these for the bent ones I had. They came with road tires, so this was a great deal. The guy that got my old bent wheels did not care they were bent luckily. And since my old fairings had a lot of damage, I wanted new ones. These were pretty hard to find. So luckily I came across these second-hand ones. They look pretty decent, but they will get repainted. But honestly, in the sun they look pretty good, even though they are red. In these next couple of photos you see the new wider A-arms I've got. These are 2 inches wider than the original ones. They've also came with these ball joints. In one of the ball joints there were extra rings stuffed inside, which was pretty weird. Maybe something went wrong with the production of these, I don't know, but luckily I was able to remove them. While working at the front side of the quad, I added a lowering kit to the front shocks. I only advise to use these for street use, not for off-road use, since they may break under heavy load. Another thing I did was replacing the brakes. I installed new rotors and pads, since the old ones were completely shot as you've seen earlier. I also installed turning signals in the rear, as well as a license plate light, since this quad needs to be road legal. And these are just a couple of new parts I've ordered, since I want to make sure we are prepared for what is yet to come. And last but certainly not least, I actually managed to find a used 2004 Raptor 660 gearbox with the correct shift forks. As mentioned earlier, the 2001 and 2002 model have a lot more gearbox issue than the later models, so this should definitely be an upgrade.
That's enough talking, let's take a look how this Yamaha Raptor 660 looks today. So guys, that's where the project currently stands. Over the last year I've rebuilt a large part of the quad, but there is still a lot of work to do. And the biggest challenge right now is the crankshaft. Once that's sorted, I can finally start rebuilding the engine and put the rest of the quad back together. The goal is simple: get this Raptor up and running and put it back where it belongs. And the rebuild is far from over and the best is yet to come. And who knows, maybe I'll even MT-07 swap it. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.